Today we'll be starting with a new chapter, photosynthesis in higher plants. Fine? We'll be studying how photosynthesis takes place in complex plants. Till now we have just done very simple concept of photosynthesis. The green plants with the help of sunlight, water, chlorophyll, they prepare their own food, and this simple process is what we call as photosynthesis. Now we'll go into the depth and find out what exactly happens during photosynthesis, what are the reactions which take place during photosynthesis, and many more new things you will get to know in this chapter. So today we will be taking up the introductory part of the chapter, which is not very complex. However, the coming topics will be a little complex, a little complicating for you people. We'll go slowly so that you can understand properly. So we are going photosynthesis in higher plants. All the energy which is required by living beings, beta, it comes from sunlight. It may come directly from sunlight or it may come indirectly from sunlight, but all the energy which is required by living organisms always comes from sunlight. And this process by which green plants, some bacteria and even some protists, okay, there is a process by which the green plants, some bacteria also, you know about photosynthetic bacteria, so we generally don't say only green plants when we talk about photosynthesis. Rather, we add on two more things, that is some bacteria and some protists also. I am talking about the Protista family. So members of Protista family are called protists. Euglena is one example which is able to perform photosynthesis. So we have modified the definition a little. We have green plants. Apart from green plants, please add some bacteria and some protists like Euglena. They can prepare their own food with the help of what? With the help of sunlight. Now, all of them, they use the energy from sunlight. After they use the energy from sunlight, they produce sugar. What is the food which is produced? It is sugar. And this sugar, through the process of cellular respiration, produces ATP. When I use the word cellular respiration, I mean respiration taking place in cells. That is why we call it as cellular respiration. So, because of cellular respiration, this sugar which was produced is converted and it produces ATP. The next question arises is why photosynthesis is so important. There are two main reasons that why photosynthesis is so important, beta. The first is that it is the primary source of all the food on the earth. Primary source, the basic source. Whether it is the herbivores or the carnivores or man or animals, all of us depend on green plants for food, whether it is directly or indirectly. So when we talk about the importance of photosynthesis, the first is that it is the primary source of food on earth, and second, beta, this is responsible for the release of oxygen. All the oxygen which you have in the atmosphere, because of which you and I can breathe and remain alive, is also because of photosynthesis. So there are two main significance of photosynthesis. There are two main reasons why photosynthesis is so important. Number one, it is the primary source of all the food on the earth, and number two, it is responsible for the release of raw materials for photosynthesis. Now, let us talk about some experiments which were conducted to find out about the raw materials for photosynthesis. First, to prove that what are the raw materials for photosynthesis, there were certain experiments which were conducted to prove that these are the raw materials for photosynthesis. You have done these experiments in class 10, so we can take it up a little quicker. The first one is, let's talk about, what are we talking about? We're talking about the raw materials for photosynthesis. The first and the most essential is light. Remember that the rate of photosynthesis is directly proportional to the intensity of light. The rate of photosynthesis is directly proportional to the intensity of light. Is it okay? There was a simple experiment, I think, which you must have done. You take a dark paper, put it on a leaf, and then you leave it exposed in sunlight for 6 hours, around 4 to 6 hours in the sun, and then you remove your paper and test it for starch. I am sure you have done this experiment in class 10th. It is produced, you will see what has happened. Starch is produced only in that area which receives sunlight. And that part of the leaf which you had covered by a black paper, a black sheet which did not receive sunlight, no starch is present. So what does this show? This shows that light is a very important feature or a very important raw material for photosynthesis. Moving on to the second basic requirement for photosynthesis, that is carbon dioxide. You have read about this experiment. This is called as a half-leaf experiment in class 10th also. This experiment was given by Moll, M-O-L-L, Moll, not M-A-L-L. It is M-O-L-L. we take a leaf and part of a leaf is inserted in a test tube which contains carbon see beta. What you must have done is simple, listen again. You take a simple leaf, half of the leaf is inside the test tube and half of the leaf is outside. Now inside the test tube, what do we add is KOH, potassium hydroxide. How do we have potassium hydroxide? It's very simple. Take a cotton, soak it in KOH and put it in the test tube. This is how you can have KOH in the test tube. Now this KOH, potassium hydroxide, has a very special property that it absorbs carbon dioxide. So what will happen now? When we test for the presence of starch, we will find that that part of the leaf which was outside the test tube, which was getting carbon dioxide, does contain starch. That means photosynthesis did take place where CO2 was present. But the part of the leaf which was inside the test tube, where no carbon dioxide was present, no photosynthesis took place, therefore there was no presence of starch. This experiment you have read in class 10, this is known as the half-leaf experiment and it was performed by Moll, M-O-L-L, Moll. Moving on to the third material for photosynthesis, that is chlorophyll. This also, we will take two leaves. One is a normal leaf and the second is a variegated leaf. In class 10th also, you must have done this word variegated. Variegated is a leaf which is green at certain places and may have a different color, white most probably, which generally have white at some other places. It is because we have a leaf which is somewhere green patches, somewhere white patches. Such kind of a leaf is known as a variegated leaf. This term, this word is already there in class 10 book of yours. Now we will do what? We are going to test both of them. We are going to de-starch both the leaves and then again we are going to test them for the presence of starch. What are we going to do? We will see that the green leaf, the leaf which was entirely green, had all starch present at all the parts of the leaf. That means the entire leaf had starch present on it because the entire leaf was green. But in variegated leaves, you will find that only the green patches contain starch. The white patches will not contain starch. What does this prove? This proves that the green patches which contain chlorophyll only could perform photosynthesis. So this also proves that chlorophyll is one of the very essential raw material needed for photosynthesis. Moving on to the last important raw material which is needed for photosynthesis, and that is water. Water is very important because now it is proved that the oxygen which is released by photosynthesis comes from water, it does not come from CO2. We all know that by photosynthesis oxygen is produced. Earlier it was believed that this oxygen came because of CO2, because carbon dioxide used to break down and that oxygen was released. But now it has been proved by experiments. I will be taking up that experiment also in the next video. It has been proved now that oxygen which is released during photosynthesis is coming from water. It is not coming from carbon dioxide. So I hope you understand how much important the water is. So these are the four raw materials for photosynthesis. First was light, second was carbon dioxide, third was chlorophyll and the fourth is water. Let us talk about the landmarks in the discovery of photosynthesis. There were so many discoveries made in photosynthesis, so many people did so many experiments, but we need to study about the landmarks. Landmark means some very important achievement done by certain people. We have three main landmarks which I will be dealing in this video. The first is by Jan Ingenhousz. You just remember Jan, if you can remember. Jan Ingenhousz. I-N-G-E-N H-O-U-S-G. So Jan's experiment also we call it. What did he do, beta? He proved he was experimenting with aquatic plants. Jan was experimenting, J-A-N. Jan's experiment it is known as. He was experimenting with aquatic plants. And he showed that in bright sunlight, some small bubbles are formed. Okay? And these small bubbles are formed when you keep a plant in sunlight. But when you keep the same plant in dark, then bubbles are not formed. This is the experiment that he did, and he observed that if we have a green plant, he was observing aquatic plants. So he saw if there is a green plant in daytime when there is sunlight, small bubbles are formed around the green plant in the water. But such bubbles are not observed in the evening or at night when sun was not present. So what did he get? What conclusion he gave? He concluded that these bubbles were actually oxygen. And this oxygen was being produced because of photosynthesis which is being done by the green parts of the aquatic plants. He said because photosynthesis takes place during daytime, so oxygen is released during daytime. So the bubbles which we see during daytime are because of the release of oxygen. At night we do not see bubbles in water near the green plants in water. The reason is because no photosynthesis is taking place, so no oxygen is being released, and that is the reason we do not see any bubbles at night when we observe the aquatic plant. This is Jan's experiment. The second one is Julius von Sachs. Who is this person? Julius von Sachs. In 1854, he proved that glucose is produced when plants grow. He said when a green plant will grow, then what is produced is glucose. And it is this glucose which will be later on stored in the form of starch. He also proved that there is a green substance which we now call as chlorophyll, which is located on some special bodies. He did not know what are these special bodies. Now we call those special bodies as chloroplast. He said that there is a green substance which is present on special bodies. So the green substance was actually now what we call as chlorophyll, and those special bodies were now what we call as chloroplast. So this was Julius von Sachs. He proved that glucose is produced when green plants grow. He also said that glucose is produced because of a presence of a green substance on some special bodies. The green substance was actually chlorophyll, and those special bodies were what we call as the chloroplast. Moving on to the third and the last milestone, that was T.W. Angelman. His name was T.W. Angelman. He experimented with green alga cladophora. He did his experiments on a green alga. The name of the alga is cladophora. What did he do? He split the light into its constituents by using prism. In class 10 physics we have done, if we take a prism, we can split white light into 7 colors. Exactly this is what T.W. Angelman did. He took white light and he split it into components with the help of prism, and then he tried to illuminate the alga. He was trying to find out that out of all the 7 components of the Vibgyor, which one is best suitable for photosynthesis. So he gave a conclusion. He gave a conclusion that it is the green and the blue light which is best for photosynthesis. His conclusion was that out of all the spectrum that we get, the green and the blue light is best suited for photosynthesis. So this is all we have done. 4 raw materials for photosynthesis. The first one we told you was light. The second was carbon dioxide. Third is chlorophyll. Fourth is water. Talking about the landmarks, first we did about Jan's experiment, in which he proved that bubble experiment, that bubbles were produced because oxygen was released, and the bubbles were produced only during daytime. Because oxygen was being produced only during daytime, the reason was photosynthesis was taking place only during the daytime. Second was Julius von Sachs. He proved that glucose is produced because of a green substance which is located on special bodies. So if you can say it is indirect discovery of chlorophyll in chloroplast. And the last is T.W. Angelman. He was trying to find out that out of the spectrum of white light, out of all the 7 colors that we have, which light is the best suitable. So he concluded that it was the green and the blue light which is best suited for photosynthesis. So by the middle of the 19th century, we knew all the raw materials which are needed for photosynthesis, and a rough chemical equation was given for photosynthesis, which was NCO2. N means the number of molecules. So you can have any number of carbon dioxide molecules plus NH2O, any number of water molecules. On the arrow we have written light, that means the presence of light is essential. And on the right side, what are your products? Carbohydrates and oxygen. This was a simple equation which was made in the early 19th century for photosynthesis, which says NCO2 plus NH2O. That means on the left hand side of the reactants are NCO2, a certain number of carbon dioxide molecules, and a certain number of water molecules in the presence of light. On the right side, it is written carbohydrates plus oxygen. So these are the 2 things which are produced after photosynthesis. This is just an introductory part of the chapter. We will move on to more complex topics in detail in the next videos. Thank you.